new case. So it's gonna be a little bit different, but how I talk about this than I normal this, that, and however. Um, this is more of almost like a PSA, public service announcement kind of speech tonight. But if you're new to the channel, my name is Rebecca. This is my channel, Red True Crime. I talk about current cases, old cases, missing cases, all that fun stuff. And be great for you to subscribe and come back and watch more videos. And if you've been here before, welcome back. Thank you again for the support. And as I always say, subscribe, share, like, comment, all that good stuff. And it might help if I actually open it. There you go. So about 12:30 this morning, a young man, a young 19-year-old man out of High Point was found dead in a car. He had been shot. Another guy, 23-year-old man who has not been identified, was also found shot and was taken to the hospital. And as far as I know, he is still alive. But the young guy who lost his life this morning was a Sean D. Zimmerman Jr. And this happened on, let's see, Terrell Drive in High Point. Ah, this is heartbreaking. I hate seeing this, you know. Um, I looked him up in our court system because I do that with everybody, whether they're missing or dead or whatever, just to get an idea about their past. And unfortunately, he has a past. He was charged with attempted murder or have using assault weapon with the intent to kill, something along those lines about a month ago. And he had a few other charges from before, and he's only 19. So that tells me that most likely, and I'm not saying this is proof of this, but if I had to extrapolate from his past record to what happened to him, this morning, I would say most likely this was some type of gang retaliation or some type of revenge case for the thing he was charged with last month. Because that happens. It does. And I'm tired of this, man. I'm just tired of these cases like this. He's 19 years old. 19. How did he end up going down this path? How? You know, um, None of it makes sense to me. None of it does because you're 19. How do you find people like this that get you involved in this kind of thing? I had brought this up earlier to a friend of mine, and he was like, well, maybe the dad wasn't involved. But that shouldn't be what causes this to happen, you know? I mean, my parents were married, but my dad was never around. He was a busy guy, had very little interaction with him, and I did not turn into a gangbanger. You know, my late husband was a severe alcoholic and an opioid abuser, and my three kids, who are now adults, did not go down that path, So it could go either way. Um, but I'm hearing constantly these cases of people who get involved with gangs or just get involved in crime in general at a young age, and they just either get killed, get arrested, or go missing. One of the three. Like Laquan Little was a case I had talked about at length. Yeah, he was a guy who went missing on New Year's Eve here in Greensboro. He was found 13 days later in a pond where his car had driven into a retention pond at this apartment complex. And his mother was convinced somebody had hurt him, but at the same time, when I looked him up in the court systems before they had found him, he was being charged with trafficking cocaine and heroin. And I thought there was more to his case, more to his disappearance, or could have been. She didn't like that. And she kept saying, oh, yeah, he had a past, but it wasn't his past. He just took the blame for his friends. Okay. So my thing is, if your kid is racked up like 25, 26 different charges over time, and they're all his friends making him do this, why didn't you intervene at some point? That's my thing. Because like when you talk about Laquan Little, I actually know somebody who went to school with him, and they said they were shocked that he turned out the way he did. He was smart. He played basketball. He was good at that. They were all like, what happened? How did he end up here? And that's going to be very much probably what the Sean D. Zimmerman kid, his, people who knew him is probably thinking the same thing. How did we end up here? You know, um, because this is an ongoing issue, and I'm not putting race in this at all. If you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, any of it, you have got gangs everywhere, and people just doing dumb things, being drawn down the wrong path all the time, and it's a choice you make. But my thing is, you have so many parents out there, single parents, two parent households, whatever, that are literally just not checking on their kids, not investigating their friends, not clarifying where they're going. You know, too many permissive parents. We just had a shootout in Catawba County. It was a big part like boat party or whatever, and people got shot and people got killed, and 4 people have been arrested. And again, it was a bunch of high schoolers, with a few people that are above the age of 21, but it was mostly high schoolers. How does this happen? You know, where were the adults for this that are watching these people? You know, you have to have parental guidance here. And too many times they're all just way too permissive. Like my late husband's aunt Gladys, she had a son, or has a son, he's still alive. And he was somebody that, she moved, and, she got some money and she moved, and he was in a decent school, and he was playing basketball and he was very good at basketball. But he got removed from the team because he got a bad grade in English. And she was mad. She was like, he's here to play ball, but you need an education too. So you got parents like that. No, and then here, case in point, this guy, he's now in his 30s, almost 40, and criminal past, living in Vegas. I'm not sure how he ended up over there, but in and out of jail constantly. You know why? Because he had a permissive mother who just let him do whatever the hell he wanted to do. And that is a problem. You want your kids to be independent, but you can't just give them free reign to do whatever the heck they want to do. It doesn't work that way, because this is where you end up sometimes, more times than not, I should say. You see these girls out there dressing all kinds of scandalous, showing off everything, trying to entice somebody. That can go down a road that you don't want to go. Like Marissa Carmichael's mother. That girl was out there with friends having intimate relations with older men at the age of like 13, end up having a child at 15. Now she's missing, you know. Um, it's it's just a sad situation no matter how you look at it. Because too many times these kids either end up dead, overdosed, or missing. So many of these kids I see the posters all the time. People just putting on Facebook looking, for their child. Oh, they went missing, they left, they did whatever. Never to be heard from again. And more has to be done. More has to be done. I mean, what happened to the after school programs? What happened to um, other just resources out there for to give these kids something to do? Because my thing is, if your kid has nothing to do, that is when they get into trouble. Because then they go find something to do, and it's usually something they shouldn't be doing. And I truly believe that. And yeah, I mean, it's insane. I could go on and on and on and on and on, and I'd rather not, because too many kids are dead, too many are missing, and too many people don't care. And that is the crux of the problem right there. Too many people don't care. They used to say it takes a village to raise a child. Where is it? Where's the village now? Where are our villages? Because nobody really knows their neighbors anymore. Nobody bothers to talk to people anymore. Nobody bothers to keep an eye out on other people's kids anymore, because they're too busy being afraid of being accused of something. There's that too. I mean, it's like no matter what you do, you're in the wrong. No matter what you do, you're upsetting somebody, and this world is going to hell in a handbasket. I'm just gonna say it. It's going to hell in a handbasket, and too much needs to be done. Now, on Marissa Carmichael, she does have a new detective on her case. Guy got assigned back in March. I don't know if anything else has been done on that. We're getting to almost 18 months of her missing and no word, nothing. This makes no sense whatsoever. No sense. And there's been a phantom picture running around of this guy, supposedly up in Charlotte, that someone was saying that he's involved in her disappearance, but nobody will say what his name is. And I've seen some comments where people were like, "Oh, met him on Facebook dating, and we talked a little bit, but all I have is his Facebook name." Okay, what's his Facebook name? Give a name. Don't drop a picture of a dude and not give a name, because then if you want people to be warned to stay away from this guy, you kind of need a name. Let people investigate themselves, to see if this is valid what you're saying. Not getting any of that, which I think is completely bizarre because originally when Marissa went missing, there was two guys that they accused of being involved. And both those guys have been cleared by Greensboro PD. At least last I had heard they've been cleared. That could change. I don't know. But now there's this other dude that nobody knows who this guy is. No idea. So I don't know. But elephant in the room is watch your kids, question your kids, check out their friends, check out their friends' parents, because too many weirdos are out there with kids and doing crazy things. And then your kids end up being gangbangers, missing, dead, whatever. You don't want that. But like I said, I could go into statistics. I rather not at this point because it's just depressing to talk about. I mean, again, like I said, I keep getting these messages from people, these missing people posters, or these news articles where so and so died and that person died and that person did this. It's just so sad and it's too much. And it's just crazy. So, well, I'm gonna hop off here because that's all I had for tonight. I will be coming out with a in-depth on a historical case that I look forward to releasing here in the next 24 to 48 hours. It's about the Tulsa race riots that happened in 1921. And what's interesting about it now is, yes, it happened in 1921, but you still have survivors from 1921 that are alive today that are still looking for some type of reparations from that case. And the question is, do they deserve it or not? We'll go into that when I present the video. So, as I said, good night, everybody. This is Rebecca with Red True Crime. If you've not already subscribed, please do so. It's free, doesn't cost anything, and helps with the algorithm, get it out there to other people. And but if you've already subscribed, share, like, comment, please. I always enjoy the comments. And if you have any requests of cases you want me to cover, please send it on over. But good night, everyone. Thank you again for joining, and have a great, great evening.